Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Web3 Quick Bite podcast. The podcast where we jump into the latest beats in the decentralized world and chat with some brilliant minds in the industry. I'm your host, Olabisi, and today we are discussing a topic that's creating quite a buzz in the Web3 world, gamification. Now, if you heard the word gamification and you picture yourself playing, let's say, Candy Crush on the blockchain, you're not entirely obese, but gamification in Web3 goes far beyond just playing games. It's about making the entire Web3 experience more engaging, fun, and rewarding. In today's episode, together, we'll explore how gamification is becoming a powerful tool for user acquisition in the Web3 space. So whether you're a blockchain beginner or you're a die-hard crypto lover, this episode will give you valuable insights into this exciting intersection of gaming and decentralized technology. So grab your virtual controller and let's level up our understanding of Web3 gamification. All right, let's start with the basics. What's gamification in Web3? Before we get into the full details, before we get into the advanced section of this episode, let's start with the basics. What is gamification in Web3? What exactly do we mean by gamification in the context of Web3? So, in simple terms, gamification is the application of game design elements and game principles in non-game context. When we talk about gamification in Web3, we are referring to the use of these game-like elements in blockchain applications and platforms. Now, you might be thinking, isn't Web3 complicated enough already without adding games to the mix? And you're not wrong. Blockchain can be complex. There's the common notion, or there's the popular notion about Web3. Web3 is the complex. There's just so many complexities surrounding it. And you're not wrong. It is. But that is exactly why gamification is so powerful. It can make complex processes more engaging and easier to understand. To make things simpler, let's use an analogy. You guys know I love using analogy to break things down and to make it easier for you to understand. So let's use another analogy. Remember when you were a kid and your parents, either your mom or dad, would turn your household chores into a game to make them more fun? Did anyone ever experience that while growing up? Maybe you had a star chart for completing your task, or you race against a timer to clean your room. That's essentially what gamification does. It takes something that might be challenging or boring and makes it fun and rewarding. Do you see where I'm heading to? Let's bring it back to the Web3 world. So in the Web3 world, gamification can take many forms. Reward systems, which is earning tokens or NFTs for completing certain actions. We also have leaderboards, which means you're competing with other users for the top spots. Quests or challenges, completing specific tasks to unlock rewards. Progress bars, which is visualizing your advancements through a process. Virtual economies, creating in-platform economies where users can earn and spend. Now that we know what gamification in Web3 looks like, let's explore why it's becoming such a powerful tool for user acquisition. Which brings us to the next segment in this episode. Why gamification works for user acquisition. We're already done with the basics, so now we need to focus and talk and discuss about why it works for user acquisition. So stay with me here, guys. In Web3, user acquisition can be challenging. In Web2, we already have a set of, how will I put it now? a set of rules where they have a blueprint on how users can be acquired, how they can be retained, and whatnot. But in Web3, it can be quite challenging because this is a new terrain. This is a new part. Everyone in this space, we're all just testing too many things. We're all trying out many things before we find one that can stick. So it is very challenging to acquire users in this space. The technology is new. It can be complex. And let's face it, the honest truth is that setting up a wallet and navigating decentralized application isn't always intuitive. This is where gamification comes in, like a superhero to save the day. And just like a superhero, gamification is powerful for several reasons. Let's look through them. The first one is it lowers the entry barrier. By making the onboarding process fun and rewarding, gamification can make it less daunting for new users to enter the Web3 space. Secondly, is that it increases engagement. When users are busy having fun, they are more likely to stick around and continue using the platform. Right? If you're having fun doing something, you spend hours and hours doing it. It's just like you scrolling through social media, you're scrolling on TikTok, you're having fun before you realize, you're like, oh, dang, I've lost 2 hours. I've spent 2 hours on this platform. I spent 3 hours playing games. I spent 5 hours. I spent 12 hours watching a series. When you're having fun, you're likely to stick around and continue doing whatever you're doing. So the same also applies to gamification. That is why it's powerful for several reasons. So when you're having fun on a particular platform, on a Web2 platform, you tend to forget that, oh, Web3 is complex. Web3 is so difficult to understand. You're having fun and then you spend hours on it. And you're more likely to stick around and come back another time, some other time again, to keep using it. The third is that it provides clear goals and rewards. Gamification gives users clear objectives and rewards for their actions, which can be highly motivating. The fourth is it creates a sense of progress. As users complete tasks and earn rewards, they feel a sense of advancement, which encourages continued participation. A fifth reason is that gamification fosters community. Competitive elements can create a sense of community among users. So I've listed 5 reasons now on why gamification is Web3 superhero that is powerful. And because of these 5 reasons that I've mentioned, that is why gamification is powerful. But let's now take a look at a real world example. Remember Axie Infinity? Did anyone listening to this right now, did you play Axie Infinity? Did you hear about it? It's a blockchain-based game where players can earn cryptocurrency by breeding, battling, and trading fantasy creatures called X's. At its peak, it had over 2.7 million daily active users, many of whom were new to crypto. Imagine you're new to crypto and a blockchain game was what brought you to crypto. You've never heard about it before, but because a friend of a friend mentioned it to you, or you stumbled on it on social media, just be like, okay, yeah, let me just give it a shot. And then before you know, you're having too much fun. And you're just in. You're just in. And that is how most people found themselves in the Web3 space. So this game's success in attracting users lies in its gamification element. Players earn real cryptocurrency. They were earning SLP tokens for playing. That was the native token for Axie Infinity. There's a clear progression system as players level up their X's. The game also has a social element with players forming teams and guilds. So you can see that the reasons I mentioned earlier, the Axie Infinity team, the reasons I mentioned earlier, the Axie Infinity team, they were able to bring people in using gamification elements, and you could see why gamification is super, super powerful, because the reasons I mentioned earlier are what contributed to the success of this game. See where it gets interesting? But that is not even where it gets interesting. Here is where it gets interesting. Axie Infinity didn't just acquire users for its game. It onboarded millions of people into the broader Web3 ecosystem. Players had to set up crypto wallets, learn about tokens, and engage with the blockchain-based economy. So they came for the game, but in the long run, they were onboarded into Web3 one way or the other. Now, it feels like I can almost hear some of you thinking, but I'm not building a game. I'm not building a game. I'm building a DeFi protocol. I'm building an NFT marketplace. I'm building a DAO. How is gamification going to work for my own project? I'm not a gamer, so what are you saying? And you're right to wonder how this applies to you, because DeFi and gaming, they are two different things. But one thing you should know is that the beauty of gamification is that these principles can be applied to any Web3 project. I will explain. For example, a DeFi protocol might offer bonus tokens for users who maintain a certain level of liquidity, create a leaderboard for top lenders, or offer quests for trying out different features of the platform. Likewise, an NFT marketplace could gamify the collecting process. It could offer special rewards for completing team collections or being among the first to acquire new drops. What's important is that the key is to identify the core actions you want users to take, and then design game-like elements that make those actions more engaging and rewarding. You see that gamification doesn't just apply to the gaming aspect of Web3. It cuts across all the different projects. DeFi, DAO, NFT. You can always integrate gamification into your process. So I know I already talked about the basics, and I already explained why gamification works for user acquisition. So now let's talk about the challenges and considerations. I know it sounds all exciting and interesting already, but before we all rush off to add leaderboards and reward systems to our Web3 project, why don't you pump the brakes a bit and consider some of the challenges and potential pitfalls of gamification? First, the elephant in the room. Regulatory concerns. Depending on how it's implemented, gamification could potentially run afoul of gambling laws or securities regulation. That is why it's crucial to consult with legal experts when designing gamifying elements. My thing for here is Web3 decentralized. Nobody can interfere with it. That's why you're getting it all around. You can get into some legal issues if you don't explore the opportunities, and if you don't want to be on the wrong side of the law. Web3, it is Web3, yes. We're trying to change the regulations, the restrictions, and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you still have to adhere to rules and regulations. And so before you say, gamification looks like something that I can apply to my project, make sure you study the laws, the regulations, so you don't get into trouble. The last thing you want is to get into trouble with the law. Second is balancing fun and function. While gamification can make things more engaging, it's important not to let the game elements overshadow the core functionality of your platform. And you should also look at sustainability. If your gamification relies heavily on token rewards, you need to ensure that your tokenomics are sustainable in the long term. You need to ensure that you don't want something that you can't sustain for a long period of time. You don't want something that's going to be in the market for days or weeks or months. So you need to make sure that your tokenomics are sustainable in the long term. What is user exploitation? See, there's a fine line between motivating users and exploiting them. So be careful not to create systems that encourage unhealthy or addictive behaviors. You don't want to create you don't want to create a community of gamblers, of addicted people. You don't want to be the reason why people are gambling away their crypto or their assets or liquidating their portfolio. You don't want to be that person. So the last is, and yeah, that aside, you don't want to exploit people because exploitation, like I said, there's a fine line between motivating people and exploiting them. So it is important that you have set rules in place, set regulations in place to avoid this. I mean, you create your game and you create gamification into your project, and what you're thinking is, oh, I want to motivate people, and you lose yourself in it, and before you know, you're exploiting your community members, you're exploiting your community users. It gives a bad rep to your project, it gives a bad rep to you yourself. So we should always learn to put our head in the game and make sure that we do not create systems that encourage this kind of behavior. The last is cheating and gaming the system. Where there are games, there will always be people trying to cheat. So you need robust systems to prevent exploitation of your gamified elements. I'll explain this. Imagine you are a teacher trying to motivate your students to learn. You offer them small rewards for completing assignments. This might work well at first. But if you start giving out large cash prizes for good grades, you might create a whole host of unintended consequences, which is cheating. Your students are stressed out. Now there's a focus on grades rather than learning, etc. The same principles apply in Web3 gamification. It's a powerful tool, no doubt, but it needs to be wielded responsibly. A prime example of the potential pitfalls is the rise and fall of yield farming in DeFi. Many protocols used gamified elements to attract users, offering high yields and special rewards for providing liquidity. While this led to explosive growth initially, it also created unsustainable dynamics and, in some cases, left users vulnerable to rug pulls and other scams. So what's a Web3 project to do? Here are some best practices for you. I don't be too worried or get scared that Olabisi just mentioned how gamification is set to change things. I can acquire more users and this, and now she's talking about rules and regulation, just thinking about how there's a fine line between motivating and exploiting. So what am I supposed to do? Well, that's a good question because he has some best practices for you. Number 1, align gamification with your core values and goals. 2, design for long-term engagement, not just short-term case. It's easy to get diverted in this space by the short-term gains, but always put your head in the game and design for long-term engagement. Long-term engagement pays off in the long run. It does pays off in the long run. So always design for long-term engagement and not just short-term gains. 3rd, be transparent about how your gamified systems work. 4th, regularly review and adjust your gamification strategy. And last but not least, always prioritize user safety and platform stability. Now that I've spoken about best practices for your Web3 project and what you need to do if you're looking to integrate gamification, let's talk about the future of gamification in Web3. Where do we go from here? Is gamification just a passing trend, or is it yet to stay in the Web3 space? Well, based on current trends, it seems that gamification will continue to play a significant role in Web3 user acquisition and engagement. However, we are likely to see more sophisticated and thoughtful implementations as the space matures. Some possibilities for the future include more seamless integration of game elements into serious applications, use of AI to personalize gamified experiences, increased focus on community building aspects of gamification, evolution of play-to-earn models into more sustainable play and earn systems. At the end of the day, the key will be finding the right balance, which is using gamification to enhance the user experience and drive acquisition without compromising on the core value proposition of Web3, which is decentralization, user ownership, and financial empowerment. As we wrap up this episode, guys, let's quickly recap what we've covered about gamification in Web3. Number one, I said it's a powerful tool for making complex blockchain concepts more accessible and engaging. Secondly, I said when done right, it can significantly boost user acquisition and retention. Third, but it does come with challenges, including regulatory concerns and the need for long-term sustainability. And lastly, the future of Web3 gamification likely involves more sophisticated and integrated approaches. Whether gamification is the secret sauce for your Web3 project often depends on how it's implemented. As with many things in the rapidly evolving blockchain space, the key is to stay informed, be creative, and always keep your users' best interests at heart. What do you think? Is gamification the future of Web3 user acquisition, or are there better ways to onboard new users? Have you interacted with any particularly effective gamified Web3 platforms? I would love to hear your thoughts. And that wraps up today's episode of the Web3 Quick Bite podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, kindly rate this podcast, drop your comments, and also spread the word by sharing the podcast with your friends or anyone who you think would need to listen to this episode. If you have any feedback or questions, please reach out on social media or send us an email at web3quickbites@gmail.com. Until next time, guys, keep leveling up in the exciting world of blockchain and cryptocurrency. See you next week. Bye.